Guttman, the author of Great Business Teams and Coach Yourself to Win. I think one thing that comes up a lot in any organization is if a company has a situation where a team feels as though their leader is unable to recognize the need to change within himself or herself, what are some next steps that that team can take to help the situation move forward?
Well, I would say that the first thing they should do is test that theory, though. I mean, because what you don't know, number one, is how conscious that leader is. And until they really have a conversation, to go from the presumption is a bit of a leap. So as opposed to going from a presumptive close, what I would do if I had a good rapport with the leader, and in fact, the first thing I would do is think about who does have a good rapport, is I'd make sure that the conversation with the leader was first a qualifying conversation to see whether or not they even saw that. So I would pose it as, I'd like to provide you with some input. I have an observation. Are you open to hearing that? That would be the dialogue. That's at least the way I would start trying to build the rapport. And then essentially if the person said, okay, then at that point I would come from a place of, here's my observation. This is what I'm seeing. These are the implications.
Now, do you think it's a similar situation for when the leader is approaching the employees, or and as a group and individually? Should it be the same sort of thing of make sure that we understand the conversation first and then approach?
Yeah, funny enough, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, the only distinction between a leader versus dealing with a peer is the leader can actually have the positional authority to say, the conversation is over, the negotiation is over. Right. Other than that, you'd want people to really come from a mindset that I'm engaged with the leader no differently than I'll engage with the other people on the team. So the leader going to somebody and saying the same thing. I mean, look, if I have an issue with a consultant, I will say to them, look, here's my observation, here's my concern, this is what I'm making it up to be, where are you with that? So you'd still want to go from the same place from a feedback standpoint, honestly.
And actually, while we're on the topic of feedback, let's stay on the leadership side of the desk for a moment. In your opinion, there's a lot of debate, written feedback versus face-to-face feedback. Is it situational? Is one method better than another? Because I think a lot of companies, we find throughout working with various authors and organizations that there's a lot of focus centered around the annual performance review.
Right.
And a lot of people in management theory rail against it, but we've yet to find anything better. In your opinion, written feedback, face-to-face feedback, one or the other?
Face-to-face feedback should be a norm. If you're playing out like a once-a-year written feedback time, like a performance appraisal, it almost should be like a fait accompli. So if I had a rule, I would say that face-to-face should be ongoing, so that by the time anything shows up in writing, it's literally like no surprise. When people usually do writing first, it shows up to me as they're hiding out. And there's a conflict aversion there. And it's not really it's not powerful. So even when we solicit input, when we do executive coaching, when we solicit input from players around somebody else, we always do it face-to-face.
So the written aspect, in some regard, is it a situation where companies have gotten hung up on that because there's been such a thing for documentation? We need documentation for performance evaluation and other aspects of that. Is that where that kind of originated?
Yeah, documentation. It's a good summation. But if you were working for me and I wanted to sit down with you and give you an observation, what we would do is we'd have the conversation. I'd get a sense of your receptivity. We'd come up with a game plan, and then I would say, look, Andrew, what I'd like to do as a follow-up is I'd like to capture some of the key points, email them to you to make sure we're on the same page. So I see written really as more of, as I said, summarizing what we've agreed to. The problem is that if your first shot out of the gate is going to be written, it can feel like a gotcha, particularly if you've never had the conversation before. So right off the bat, you start going down a real slippery slope, because what you're modeling to your people is that, drive-by, written documents are permissible.
And the key message there is never lead with email.
Yeah, you never do that. No, so to me, it's like it's the verbal, it's the face-to-face. It's treating the person like a partner, not treating the person like somebody that I just am assessing. So you really have to think about, what would work for you. And I would probably say that most people, probably 9 out of 10, would absolutely say that they'd prefer if somebody had input from them. Potentially, if it was particular, if it was constructive, they would prefer that someone would go to them first. I mean, I would assume.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.